Life can take unexpected turns. Sometimes a chance encounter can lead us down paths we never imagined. This is Roberto Wilcox's story. Before we begin, I need to warn you. This tale contains mature themes and explores taboo subjects. If you're sensitive to stories about infidelity or complex family dynamics, you might want to skip this one. Roberto Wilcox seemed like an ordinary guy. A single dad in his late 40s, he lived a quiet life with his 24-year-old daughter, Vienna. They were close, maybe too close, as it turns out. One fateful day, Roberto stumbled into an online chat room. There, he met Ashlyn Muller, a 23-year-old with some unusual interests. Their conversations sparked something in Roberto, something he'd tried to ignore for years.
What happened next would change the Wilcox family forever. It's a story about desire, temptation, and crossing lines that should never be crossed. Are you ready to hear how a stranger on the internet led Roberto to do the unthinkable with his own daughter? Let's find out. Roberto Wilcox's life seemed ordinary on the surface. At 48, he worked as an accountant and lived with his 24-year-old daughter, Vienna. They shared a cozy apartment in a quiet suburb, their days filled with routine and familiarity. But beneath that calm exterior, Roberto felt restless. His marriage had ended years ago, leaving him lonely and unfulfilled. He loved Vienna dearly, but as she grew into adulthood, their relationship changed. She became more independent, spending less time at home.
One chilly November evening, as Thanksgiving approached, Roberto found himself alone again. Vienna was out with friends, and the empty apartment felt oppressive. He opened his laptop, seeking distraction.
A pop-up ad caught his eye, an online chat room for like-minded adults. Curiosity got the better of him, and he clicked. The chat room buzzed with activity, usernames flashed by, conversations overlapping. Roberto felt overwhelmed until a private message appeared. "Hi there, newbie. I'm Ashlyn. What brings you here tonight?"
Roberto hesitated, then typed a response. Soon, he and Ashlyn were deep in conversation. She was 23, just a year younger than Vienna. Her wit and openness drew him in.
As they chatted, Ashlyn revealed her interest in daddy-daughter roleplay. Roberto's pulse quickened. He'd never admitted it to anyone, but he'd had similar fantasies. "It's just pretend," Ashlyn assured him. "A way to explore power dynamics and nurturing relationships." Roberto found himself opening up, sharing thoughts he'd kept buried for years. Ashlyn listened without judgment, encouraging him to explore his feelings. Their chats became a nightly ritual. Roberto looked forward to them, feeling a connection he'd been missing for so long. One night, Ashlyn asked about his real-life relationships. Roberto mentioned Vienna, describing their close bond. "Have you ever wondered if she might have similar fantasies?" Ashlyn asked.
The question shocked Roberto. He'd never considered it. But now, memories surfaced. Moments when Vienna's touch lingered too long, or her gaze held his a beat longer than necessary.
"It's more common than you think," Ashlyn said. "Maybe you should pay closer attention." Roberto couldn't shake the idea. He began noticing things about Vienna he'd overlooked before. The way she leaned into him during movie nights. How she sought his approval on her outfits.
Was it possible? The thought both thrilled and terrified him.
As days passed, Roberto's curiosity grew. He found himself watching Vienna more closely, analyzing her every move. Was that a flirtatious smile? Did her hand brush his on purpose? He shared his observations with Ashlyn, who eagerly encouraged his newfound awareness. "Trust your instincts," she urged. "If you're noticing these things, there's probably something there."
Roberto's world shifted. Every interaction with Vienna took on new meaning. He felt guilty for these thoughts, yet couldn't stop them. Ashlyn's words echoed in his mind, fueling his growing obsession.
As Thanksgiving approached, tension built in the Wilcox household. Roberto struggled to act normal around Vienna, his mind racing with possibilities. He both dreaded and longed for the holiday, knowing they'd be spending it alone together. What would happen? Roberto didn't know, but he was certain of one thing. His relationship with Vienna would never be the same again. Roberto's chats with Ashlyn sparked a change in how he viewed Vienna. He started noticing things he'd overlooked before. One evening, as they watched TV, Vienna snuggled close to him on the couch. Her head rested on his shoulder, her perfume filling his senses. Roberto felt a flutter in his chest. Was this normal father-daughter behavior? He recalled a time when Vienna asked him to zip up her dress. Her skin felt warm under his fingers. She'd looked back at him, smiling. "Thanks, Daddy," she'd said, her voice soft.
At dinner, Vienna often touched his arm while laughing at his jokes. Her eyes lingered on him. Roberto wondered if he was reading too much into these moments.
He struggled with these thoughts. Part of him felt disgusted. Vienna was his daughter. But another part felt a thrill he couldn't ignore. Late at night, Roberto shared these observations with Ashlyn. She encouraged him, saying Vienna's actions hinted at deeper feelings. "Remember when she wore that short skirt to dinner?" Roberto typed. "She kept crossing and uncrossing her legs. I couldn't stop looking."
Ashlyn replied, "She wanted your attention. She's trying to show you she's a woman now."
Roberto's mind raced. He thought about Vienna's recent breakup, how she'd cried in his arms, saying no one understood her like he did.
He remembered teaching Vienna to slow dance for prom, how she'd pressed against him, giggling when he twirled her.
These memories took on new meaning. Roberto felt both excited and ashamed. "What should I do?" he asked Ashlyn. "Pay attention," she advised. "Look for more signs. If you're right, you'll both be happier once you're honest with each other."
Roberto logged off, his heart pounding. He knew he was crossing a line, but he couldn't stop thinking about Vienna in this new way.
As days passed, Roberto watched Vienna closely. He noticed how she dressed around him, how she sought his approval. Was she really flirting? Or was he seeing what he wanted to see? The line between fatherly love and something more blurred. Roberto felt lost in a storm of confusion and desire.
Roberto's chats with Ashlyn grew more intense. She kept pushing him to see Vienna's actions as flirtatious.
"Remember when Vienna asked you to zip her dress?" Ashlyn typed. "That wasn't innocent. She wanted you to touch her." Roberto felt a mix of excitement and guilt. He tried to resist these thoughts, but Ashlyn's words echoed in his mind.
One evening, Vienna complained of back pain after a long day at work. Roberto offered a massage, his heart racing.
As his hands moved across Vienna's shoulders, he noticed her soft sighs. Was she enjoying this more than a daughter should? "Lower," Vienna murmured. Roberto's fingers trembled as they moved down her spine. Suddenly, Vienna tensed. "Dad," she whispered, turning to face him, their eyes locked. For a moment, Roberto thought he saw a flicker of desire in Vienna's gaze. But then she pulled away, mumbling about needing sleep.
Roberto sat alone, his mind spinning. What just happened? Did Vienna feel it too?
He rushed to his computer, eager to tell Ashlyn. As he recounted the story, she showered him with praise.
"You're making progress," Ashlyn wrote. "She wants you. She's just scared to admit it."
Roberto felt a surge of confidence. Maybe Ashlyn was right. Maybe Vienna did want him. But doubt crept in. Was he misreading everything? Was he becoming a monster? The days after the back rub incident felt tense in the Wilcox household. Roberto and Vienna danced around each other, avoiding eye contact and keeping conversations brief. One evening, as Vienna prepared dinner, Roberto decided to break the ice. "Hey, sweetie, can we talk?" Vienna nodded, her eyes fixed on the vegetables she was chopping. "About the other night," Roberto began, his heart racing. "I feel like things got a bit weird between us."
Vienna's knife paused mid-slice. "Yeah, I guess they did," she said softly.
Roberto took a deep breath. "I care about you so much. I want us to be close, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Vienna turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Dad, I don't know what to say. I love you too, but..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the air thick with unspoken words.
Over the next few days, Roberto initiated more conversations. Each time, Vienna seemed torn between pulling away and leaning in.
Once, as they watched TV, Vienna curled up next to Roberto on the couch. Her head rested on his shoulder, just like when she was little. But now the air crackled with a new kind of tension. "This is nice," Vienna murmured. Roberto's arm tightened around her. "It is," he agreed, his voice husky.
Later that night, Roberto logged on to chat with Ashlyn. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he recounted every detail of his interactions with Vienna.
"She's definitely feeling it too," Ashlyn typed back. "You just need to be patient. Let her come to you." Roberto stared at the screen, a mix of excitement and guilt churning in his stomach. Was Ashlyn right? Was Vienna really reciprocating his feelings? As the days passed, Roberto found himself hyper-aware of every little thing Vienna did. The way she smiled at him over breakfast, how her hand lingered on his arm when she passed him in the hallway. With each interaction, Roberto's resolve weakened. He wanted more, needed more. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that this was wrong, that he was crossing a line that should never be crossed. Still, he couldn't stop himself from sharing everything with Ashlyn. Her encouragement fueled his growing obsession, pushing him closer and closer to the point of no return. As Christmas drew near, the Wilcox household crackled with tension. Roberto and Vienna danced around each other, their every interaction charged with unspoken desire. One evening, as they decorated the tree, their hands brushed. Vienna's breath caught. Roberto's heart raced. They locked eyes, the moment stretching endlessly. "Dad," Vienna whispered, her voice trembling, "I think we need to talk." They sat on the couch, the twinkling lights casting a soft glow. Vienna spoke first, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted. "I know it's wrong, but these feelings—" Roberto's chest tightened. He reached for her hand, marveling at its softness. "I feel it too, sweetheart. God help me, I do." Their lips met, hesitant at first, then with growing passion. Years of repressed longing burst forth. They clung to each other, lost in the forbidden moment.
Afterward, they lay tangled together, a mix of elation and guilt washing over them. Vienna traced patterns on Roberto's chest, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "What happens now?" she asked softly.
Roberto kissed her forehead, his mind reeling. "I don't know, baby, but we'll figure it out together." That night, Roberto couldn't sleep. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he poured out every detail to Ashlyn. Her responses fueled his excitement, pushing away the nagging doubts. "You've done it," Ashlyn typed. "I knew she wanted you too. How did it feel?" Roberto paused, considering. Amazing, terrifying, like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time.
As dawn broke, Roberto finally crawled into bed. His dreams were a swirl of Vienna's touch and Ashlyn's words of encouragement. The line between right and wrong blurred, leaving only the intoxicating thrill of forbidden love.
In the days that followed, Roberto and Vienna stole moments together whenever possible. A lingering touch in the kitchen, a heated glance across the room. The air hummed with electricity. Each night, Roberto shared every intimate detail with Ashlyn. Her enthusiasm matched his own, spurring him to push further, take more risks. "You deserve this happiness," Ashlyn insisted. "Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed."
As Christmas Eve arrived, Roberto felt drunk on desire and validation. He planned a special night for Vienna, his mind racing with possibilities.
The boundaries between father and lover, daughter and temptress, blurred beyond recognition. In the glow of the Christmas lights, Roberto and Vienna surrendered to their passion once more, heedless of the consequences that awaited them in the cold light of day. Roberto and Vienna sat on opposite ends of the couch, the air thick with tension. They'd crossed a line and now reality was setting in. "We need to stop," Vienna said softly. "This can't continue."
Roberto nodded, a mix of relief and disappointment washing over him. "You're right. What we did, it's not okay."
They talked for hours, unpacking the events that led them here. Vienna admitted she'd always craved her father's approval, sometimes in ways that confused her. Roberto confessed how Aislin's words had twisted his perspective. "I feel so guilty," Roberto said. "I'm your father. I should have known better."
Vienna reached for his hand. "We're both adults, Dad. We both made this choice."
As they spoke, their bond shifted. The sexual tension faded, replaced by a new openness. They discussed boundaries, past hurts, and hopes for their future relationship. Roberto felt a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement from the forbidden encounter still lingered, but shame and confusion dominated. How had he let things go so far? "That woman online," he mused. "I can't believe how much power I gave her over our lives." Vienna's eyes widened. "You told someone about us?"
Roberto explained about Aislinn, watching hurt and betrayal flash across his daughter's face. He realized how deeply his actions had impacted them both.
As dawn broke, father and daughter made a pact. They'd seek therapy, individually and together. They'd rebuild their relationship on healthier ground. Roberto logged off his chat app one last time, blocking Aislinn. He'd allowed a stranger to reshape his world, nearly destroying his family in the process. As Vienna hugged him goodbye, Roberto felt a glimmer of hope. They had a long road ahead, but maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to a proper father-daughter bond. As our story comes to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on Roberto and Vienna's journey. We've seen how a chance online encounter led to a series of choices that nearly tore their family apart. Roberto, feeling lonely and unfulfilled, fell under the influence of a stranger on the internet. Aislinn's words twisted his perception, making him see his daughter in a new, inappropriate light. This led to a brief, intense affair that crossed boundaries that should never be crossed. In the end, Roberto and Vienna chose to step back from the brink. They recognized the damage they'd done and committed to rebuilding their relationship in a healthier way. This story, while fictional, highlights the immense power of online interactions. A few words from a stranger can plant seeds that grow into life-altering decisions. It's a reminder to be cautious about who we let influence our thoughts and actions, especially when it comes to our closest relationships. Remember, this tale is purely fictional. It's meant to provoke thought and discussion, not to condone or encourage any illegal or unethical behavior. What do you think about Roberto and Vienna's story? How would you have handled things differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories that explore complex human relationships, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.